So these are 7 albums that have changed just how I've seen music could be made, where music can go, sounds, lyrics wise, all that. Just basically just did something to change my perception or widen it, my horizon on just what music could be. These are not in any particular order. It's just in the order that I basically thought them up. And the first one I'm gonna name is Treats by Sleigh Bells. It's interesting because I picked this album up at the library just based on the album cover. It's like, it was just weird to me, like, what kind of music could possibly come from an album cover like this, with a bunch of like cheerleaders with like distorted faces. I'm just thinking, like, I can't possibly imagine what kind of sound is gonna come from someone who decided to like express their artistry with this type of imagery. I'm like, and very rarely will I just listen to something just based off album cover. I mean, it definitely, sometimes I could tell from an album cover if the music's gonna be good or not, just for some reason. I feel like I have that ability. But for this one, I couldn't tell. I just didn't even know what would even come from something like this. What came from this album that really, I guess, changed my perspective on music is just seeing how they use really hard guitars and put 808s in just like a hard, like, not necessarily hip-hop, but like just like hip-hop inspired type of like drum patterns, or just using that 808 without making it sound corny, like, because of course it's not like guitars and 808s haven't been used, but the way they did it, it was like the closest thing I've heard to like pop metal. And I feel like the artists, when they made this, they weren't making it to appeal really hard to any certain demographic. To me, I just felt like it really felt like they made it for fun. And knowing how they created the album, which is they made this in their apartment, from what I recall. They created this album in their apartment with like just regular old software, like as if they were in my room and they could have made the same album. So that also helped to just really know that you could make pretty good music and pretty energetic music without having to like go to the studio or anything like that. And I know they're not like the first people to make like pop metal or whatever, but it's just like, for me, that was my first hand experience with just listening to an album just full of nothing, like, but just like hard stuff with like that hard bass. Because usually, like, with metal and hard rock, the bass don't be hitting like that. Like the bass, like the hardest bass, maybe like the bass guitar will be a little louder on certain bands, and sometimes the kick drums and some of the metal, but like the bass doesn't really, like, they don't really like turn up the bass like that in hard rock or metal, from what I've heard in general. But for them, they really like, they had the hard guitars and they had the hard bass. I was really close to getting able to see them live too, but singer got sick and they had to reschedule. Thankfully, it was at a festival, 2016 Camp Flogno, so it wasn't like they were the only people I was going to see, but they were one of the artists I was really excited to see. So the second album on my list is Supreme Blientele by West Side Gun. This album was just such a vibe. It was really its own self-contained, like, work of art, because that's what West Side Gun does. He curates. He when he makes his music, he goes fully in with the intention of curating art. That's his talent. What this album did was, it showed me that boom bap sound still has a place in the modern music ecosystem. It still can be relevant and utilized in a way that's not like just sounding like, you know, some homage to old music. It's not just, hey, look, man, I appreciate the old stuff. Listen to me do the same. It's he's making it in a way that's his own, but it's continuing it. It's not just repeating it, if that makes any sense. And I really like the way he utilized wrestling promos and audio clips from wrestling clips. It actually, he probably has a hand in me kind of like reinvigorating my interest in wrestling, just based off of how he used the energy of professional wrestling as a way to like glue together some of his songs, or just to like to curate his album. For the third one, it's actually not one album, it's a series of albums that were released. There were 3 of them: Saturation Era, Brockhampton. The fact that they made 3 albums in a row where you're waiting for the next one to come out and it all holds together thematically, it's just really just, I had never seen anything like this before, especially to have a group of artists to all collaborate together and work together for that long and create something that good. It was just a really fun thing to experience in real time, because I usually, a lot of the music I'll listen to, or when I like catch on to music, it'll be like, usually it's like after the fact, like way after it came out. I didn't really even start listening to new music until like my 20s, I guess, if that makes any sense. But that was one of the first times I really like experienced the movement, like real time. So many different styles in that group when it comes to rapping. Like no one rapper sounded like the other, but they still meshed really well. They had the really lyrical, they had the street one, and then they had everything in between. And it was like, how did they even get this to work? And then to do all those styles and have a production that could roll with all of it and still sound really good and not generic, it's just like, it's just great. Like, it's something that isn't going to be easily repeated. Like, to get that many artists are like some of the most selfish creatives, like, but when to get them to work together that well, you gotta really like artists. You got to really like them and like what they do and feel like what they're doing is helping you out as well, I feel like. So that was just, it sucks. A lot of drama did happen with them. You can look that up on your own. I'm not Shade Room, so I'm not about to do all that, but yeah, it was really what is it, flash in the pan moment, or just like catching lightning in a bottle, whatever one of the phrases that, you know, rhyme with that, that's what that was. The 4th album on my list is Deloused in the Comatorium by the Mars Volta. How I came upon Mars Volta was almost like completely by chance, because it was so random. It was my roommate's girlfriend who was she was like, you gotta hear this, you gotta listen to this. So she played one of the songs from the album. The name of the song is This Apparatus Must Be Unearthed. And you know, usually when people are like excited to play music, you're like, oh boy. I mean, that's not how I am, but I know a lot of people are like that. But after I heard it, I was like, I see where she's coming from. This is something different. I didn't really have experience with prog rock like that before. Like, so once I heard that song, I was sold, and I was gonna have to eventually figure out how to listen to the rest of the album. And I didn't find out till later that the whole album is like this kind of like trippy, abstract retelling of a real life incident. It's a tragic incident, but they kind of like retell what they believe happened in a like really mythical way. Like, it's almost like one of those old Greek mythology stories, but told through an album, it's really, it's like they even released an entire book behind the album that like explains like all the songs and the lyrics and everything, and that elevated the whole album for me once I realized that's what they were doing, because the lyrics in this album are like some of the most enigmatic, and you would almost think it's nonsense, but it's not. Everything means something in it. It's just, I've never heard the way they use words together and lyrics like that before, and I still really haven't. The closest I guess you can get to like people just putting together these crazy words is like ASAP Rock or something like that, and that's not even rap. That's not even rock, that's rap. But their lyricism also showed me that you don't have to make clear sense to make a good song. You could use these words that just mean something to you, and it'll make sense as long as you like provide an explanation. Like, because sometimes people will just say a bunch of nothing and then like make up a meaning after the fact. But it's just trippy the way they use words in that album. I didn't realize I was capable of listening to like 7-minute long and 10-minute long songs without really feeling bored and just being interested in every part of it. It was, because that's what prog rock is, but like I said, I didn't really have an experience with prog rock before that, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't really listen to much more prog rock outside of the Mars Volta, because I just really like the Mars Volta style and the way they use instruments, and it's not just overly technical rock music like I feel like a lot of prog rock is, but they really get creative with like instrumentation and the genre experimentation. Number 5 is not really an album. I didn't find out till later it's not really an actual album. It's a compilation album, but it's still like an album. It's weird. Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death by the Dead Kennedys is this album, and I feel like it's just peak punk. It's not necessarily the sound that really changed my perspective, but just to hear their messaging, to hear just the subject matter was, it was my real first experience with like, I feel like real punk, as far as like political punk. I don't know. Punk is awesome to me because it could be so many things, but punk when it's punk. I did listen to Green Day and all them before, and I love Green Day, and there's nothing wrong with Green Day in my opinion. I know a lot of people hate on Green Day for being pop punk, but I feel like the Dead Kennedys are like a lot more raw and direct, and just straight up unashamed with their choice of subject matter, just things they talked about, and it's just, they're really militant. Like, to hear that kind of militancy in such raw musical form, I loved. And I know they aren't the first and only ones to do it. They did do it before Rage Against the Machine, but Rage Against the Machine is pretty good. It's just, this is more of a personal one for me. It's just to hear them do it. It was for me. It was eye-opening. 6th album, Oblivion Access by Lil Ugly Mane. When I first heard of Lil Ugly Mane, I didn't even want to listen to him just based off of his name. I don't know why that was the case, but I just was like, I hate that name. But I did end up listening to him, his first album, which was Mr. Thug Isolation, I think. And that was a cool album. I liked it. It didn't really change my perspective on anything, but Oblivion Access definitely did, because it's such a dark, distorted rap album, and it's just, I haven't really heard a rap album that was so dark and just emotionally raw, and the sound to match. It wasn't just like some hardcore stuff or just like a sad singing sample or anything like that. No, it was really gritty, raw. Like, you could really feel the emotion in this album, like the real dirty, mucky. Like, the description of the album he put on Bandcamp was like, it's all the nasty, gunked up stuff that's gets stuck in your bathtub drainer, and it's like really good description. I know that might not turn a lot of people on to want to listen to that, but for folks that like to really dive into emotion, it makes you want to listen. And just it gets really heavy, and I just never knew you could really do that with rap. Like, I know they have like Minds Playing Tricks on You and the early DMX, but this stuff was just like, it felt like it took it to the next level, which is how you can go dark without, like, I don't know, it works. There is a song that ends with this text-to-speech robotic voice that he somehow got to like rap and rhyme, and it's just the fact that he can make a text-to-speech voice sound like so haunting and poetic is just amazing. I never heard anything like that before. It just, that alone made the whole album just like jump out to me. And the seventh and last album on my list is Selected Ambient Works 85 through 92 by Aphex Twin. So before I listened to this album, the only Aphex Twin song I knew was Window Licker, and that was just because of the crazy music video that accompanied that song. My uncle was like showing me, he had this DVD set of a bunch of Chris Cunningham directed music videos, and one of them was Window Licker by Aphex Twin. So that was my only impression of Aphex Twin. And I'm not sure if it's because Frank Ocean mentioned Aphex Twin or I just happened to stumble upon it, but I ended up doing a deep dive into Aphex Twin's albums. And the first one was this one, Selected Ambient Works. And just the way it opens up to all the music in between is just, for an instrumental album, it was really full, and just I liked it. I didn't realize you could do what you could do with that electronic sound, and it sounds new still, and it was made pretty long ago. Like, it's pretty old, but it doesn't sound old. And I'm sure he's inspired a lot of the electronic music we listen to today. And I feel like I sound like a super duper casual with this one. Like, I know I sound like a casual in general, but for this one I feel like a super duper casual. But a lot of Aphex Twin's music gets sampled, and I didn't realize it until I listened to his albums. But this album in particular, it's really just because it's the first one, because all of his albums are just really good. Like, I could listen to all of his albums without skipping them. So this is mostly just because it's the first one that I heard. The way Aphex Twin puts together like these soundscapes that are crazy and just really trippy, but they still sound organic with electronic sounds. Like, it doesn't sound super duper programmed, but you know it's like a machine making the sound. I just really love what he's able to do with computer sounds. Like, it kind of made me a little more comfortable as far as producing, because sometimes when I'm producing, I feel like what I'm making sounds mad robotic. But after I heard Aphex Twin, I'm like, you can still make it work even if it does sound mad robotic. Just you gotta just make it work. You gotta like tweak it a little bit. But yeah,